jellyfish in the ocean of my head. 'Cause I drank too much tequila and I woke up seeing red. Now all I really want from life is to crawl back into bed, on account that my brain is just a jellyfish in the ocean of my head. I woke up this morning, the phone was ringing, my boss was talking, just kept on smoking like a vacuum cleaner, like a barking dog, like a headache screamer through my mental fog. Pulled on my pants, headed towards the door, but the spin and I fell to the floor. Almost made it to work, but stopped along the way.
Hi guys, today we are going to be making some jellyfish. I did my background off camera, and what I used was this black chalk paint as an undercoat for this Test Stores Crafts Color Shift spray paint in Blue Galaxy. They recommend right there on the can to apply it over black, and it really makes it pop. Doesn't take a lot of that Color Shift spray paint either. So to start our jellyfish, I'm just taking a white Posca pen, just priming off one dot of it and using a small angled brush, and I'm really diluting the heck out of this Posca. That's how diluted it is. And it layers up as I'm doing the body, and when I get to the wispy parts, the ribbony parts, very diluted as well. As each layer of that very watery white dries, I'm able to layer on top of it. So as you can see, it goes on it's kind of resisted, if you will, by the base coat, but that's okay because it will dry, and then we're going to layer on top of it and give our jellyfish that nice translucent look that we're going for. And I'm just keeping a very flowy, rough shape of the body, kind of like a Pac-Man ghost, or a mushroom cap, or whatever you envision, an umbrella, whatever it is that you see. But we're just layering right on top of it to give it that see-through effect. Some of the areas of white are thinner from the water and some are a little bit thicker, and that's exactly what we want. We want to kind of varying in the depth. Now we're starting our second body down at the bottom. As opposed to that example rock that I showed earlier, I chose to do two jellyfish on this rock shape. It seemed appropriate. So one at the top and one at the bottom on an angle. And same process, layering the white and just daubing it on, keeping our general shape of the body of the jellyfish. Keeping a little bit of a balloony type of effect at the bottom, and then with that watery paint just pulling it right back up into the body. And just keep layering until it looks the way you want it to look with that diluted white Posca. Doing the same thing with the diluted, even more diluted actually, for these ribbony parts. I don't know what they're actually called, so I'll just call them ribbony parts. And it looks like it's not going to come together, but trust me, once the colors are all added in, it will. Just make sure those little ribbons come as close to the body as you can get them, so it's actually one jellyfish and not just a blob and some ribbons. Keep doing the same thing, and that will give us the glowy kind of effect in the background there that you see. And I'm just squiggling with that angled brush and squiggling my wrist. It just comes out like that. And you're just going to layer and layer and layer, stopping when you feel like it. Let it drip down the side a little bit. That's just fine. All right, now we're going to move on to our colors. On that first rock I used, it's just a regular aqua color, but the other colors are Posca's fluorescents. They have 4 fluorescents: the yellow, the red, the pink, and the orange. In that first rock, or the first jellyfish I mean, I'll use the teal, the pink, and the yellow. Same thing that we did with the white. Dot some off, prime it off, and then add a bunch of water. Keep it very flowy. And we're just adding some hints of color into that body. And the same hints of color we have in the body will be the hints of color that we have in the ribbony part. And I want them to all sort of blend together so you don't know when one color starts and the other one stops. And the neat thing about using these diluted acrylics, the acrylic pens in this case, is when you have the brush really saturated with water and the colors touch one another, they kind of pull each other together and create a blend. You want the colors to stand out a little bit on their own, but you don't want to know where one stops and the other one starts. Now we're doing the exact same process with our pink, fluorescent pink. But you choose whatever colors you like for your jellyfish. If you want to do a rainbow jellyfish, do a rainbow jellyfish. If you want to do just blues and greens, or pinks, or whatever. Your palette, your choice. So I'm adding the pink into the body part, keeping it very diluted so that it can just pick right up into that teal and into the white. And as you keep working the paint, it will just start to blend on its own. Just keep working it until you get the blend that you're looking for. A lot of water in there. And the same goes for the background with choosing your own colors. The Tester's Craft Color Shift Spray Paint is really a fantastic one. It's not very cheap. It's a small 3-ounce bottle, and on Amazon right now it's available for, I think, like $15. But you hardly need any. With that black background, I did maybe 2-3 very light spritzes, and that's all I needed. So this can is going to last me a really long time. There are other brands of color shift spray paint as well. I haven't tried them yet. I will be trying them, but so far I've only tried this Tester's brand, and I love it. It goes on so much faster than having to paint on a color shift, and it's the exact same principle doing it over a black background. So if you'd like to give it a try, it is on Amazon. So now I'm adding my yellow into my pink, which was added into my aqua, and just keep working it with the water dilution so that they all just blend into each other. Same thing with the ribbons as I did with the body. And we will be adding that glow-in-the-dark top coat, which is really going to make these neons pop even more. And if you don't like your blend, when you are using this watered down acrylic and you're really not liking the way it's working, just stop adding layers while it's still wet. Let it dry completely, then come back, work on a different part of the rock, go pour yourself a cup of tea, whatever it is you want to do. But let it dry completely, then come back in again with the diluted, and you can layer on top of it so you can correct. If you're not happy with the way it's coming out, don't sweat it. You can correct it. There, I'm liking the way that's coming out. And now I'm going to move on to that bottom jellyfish. And on the bottom jellyfish, I chose to use the neon red, pink, orange, and just a hint of yellow. So we're starting with the red first. So I want that body to really pop out a little bit more. The yellow is a little bit more muted. That top one kind of mutes into the greens, but I want that orangey red one to really be its own color family. Same thing, watering them down, dotting them on, blending them together. This is the orange that just went into the red. Now we're going to add a little bit of that pink. And much less of the yellow one on the bottom one than I chose to do on the top one. So they just kind of swoosh into each other when you've got the paint diluted enough. It's really cool watching them grab, the other colors grab each other. So I didn't want to use teal on this one, just that red, pink, orange, and yellow. Doing our squiggles, let them drip down the side. And if you want to add bubbles to your background, you can certainly do that. If you wanted to do a background with coral, you could do that. Make it your own. Have fun with it. Love it when they drip down the sides like that. And then, of course, when you try to make it drip down, you can't get it to look as good as it did when it was dripping on its own. As it was drying, I felt like I wanted to add a little bit more punch of color. So let it dry, see how it comes out, and then add wherever you feel you want it. And you could certainly stop here with your jellyfish. You don't have to add the added little dotting that I added, because I think they look pretty cool on their own. You could even at this point, once they're dry obviously, take a gel pen and create your lines. Take another thinner paint pen and create your lines. But I'm going to dot the rest of the body, give little dimension areas, and give dimension areas to the ribbons at the bottom, the tentacles or whatever those are called. And you may have seen me do this before. I enjoy using the craft paint. If I have to thicken it or thin it, I will do so. Quite often it's a good consistency for me. That's different for different people, so find what works for you with dotting. This isn't a dotting tutorial, but I just wanted to mention that. And when I'm not going to be using a lot of paint, and I don't want to get out a separate palette or what have you, I just dot straight from the lid with that craft paint if it's the right consistency, and I happen to know that that Ceram coat that I'm using, the light ivory, is a good consistency for me. So I'm checking the size of my dots for my daughter just to make sure that's about the size I want to use. And it is. I chose two of my smallest daughters, and I will go back and forth between those two. I'm just doing walking dots in little sections around the whole cap of the body. And then we'll go in and do some more walking dots to define the parts of the body and also ribbon them through the tentacles at the bottom as well. If you feel your dots are starting to get too small, stop, wipe off your dotting tool, and reload with some paint. You can dot off to the side, like I have on that glass piece right there, just to make sure it's the size before you bring it onto your jellyfish. But if you feel like they are walking too small, reload. I want them getting smaller here though, because it's giving the definition to the body that I'm looking for. But on that whole perimeter of the body, if you want them a little bit more consistent, I thinned them a little, got them walking to a smaller size up toward the top and then down toward one of the sides. But you decide if you want it uniform dots all around it or if you want them graduating into smaller sizes. Totally up to you. If you want them uniform, reload your dotting tool in between each dot or every couple of dots. This isn't a mandala, so the precision of the sizes of the dots isn't as crucial. This is a very forgiving and loose application of dotting, and it's actually a great way to practice your walking dots and your spacing and getting to know your dotting tools. So if you are just getting started with dotting, this would be a good rock to play around with. Like I'm starting right in the middle of the top of the jellyfish there. So I'm really not worrying about the placement of the dots and which area has the bigger one and which one has the smaller one. I'm just going with it. This is a very free-flowing jellyfish rock, and as such, you can be a little bit more free-flowing with your walking dots and your spacing. Obviously, you still want to have a little bit of space in between each dot, but you don't have to have the symmetry that you would if you were painting a mandala. In this part of the jellyfish, I do want them to get smaller in size. So I'm doing one load of the dotting tool and walking them down all the way. As always with dotting, make sure you're pulling your tool straight up and down and not off to the side so that you don't get wonky shaped dots or strings of paint in areas that you don't want strings of paint. Now we're moving on to the dotting in the tentacle, flowy, ribbony area. I don't want them in a straight line. I want them to be very flowy. So I'm just making a kind of wavy line. And if I want them to come from underneath some of the color ribbons like I just did there, I just stopped and started it rather than going right across the yellow. So I stopped at one side of the yellow and then picked it back up on the other and continued the curve. Same thing right there. That way it looks like it's coming from behind. And then some of them you could just line right up with the squiggles and ribbons that you already have. Some of them you can have cross underneath or over. Just imagine them moving around in the water and doing their own thing. My tool's starting to get a little too loaded up, so I'm going to have to wipe that off, and we'll get started with another row. Oh, I don't clean it off yet, but I should have. See, I pick back up with the dots even after reloading because I'm not that worried about the size being absolutely perfect. Went behind that teal and then alongside it, so you could just do whatever you want with it. I don't have a specific count of how many of these I'm going to do. I'm just eyeballing it and seeing when I feel like it's enough. I made those kind of blend together so it kind of just tails off. You can use it however you want to. It's just fun. Kind of addicting too. You don't know when to stop, but you have to force yourself. All right, Risa, stop. I'm stopping on that one. Maybe a couple more on the sides. Okay, guess I'm not. Filling it out a little bit more with the dots. You could even leave the dots out of the bottom part. If you just wanted to dot the upper body, that would be fine. And then just have the flowy ribbons. You don't even need to do the walking dots in the bottom if you don't want to. Just choose what looks good to you. And sometimes the smaller Posca you can do dots with. And keep the same principle. If you're going to dot with a paint pen, make sure you're holding the paint pen up and down instead of at an angle. And you can actually get some pretty good dots doing that. And if you're not doing a lot of dotting or you don't have dotting tools, you can even use a white Posca to create your dots on this. All right, now we're going to do the exact same thing on the lower one. I'm speeding this up because you don't have to sit there and watch me take my time and be indecisive on my dots on that. So just carrying them up the exact same way. Adding to the body. And bringing them down into the bottom. If you do want to try dotting and you don't have dotting tools and you don't want to use a Posca, you can always use things around the house as well. You can use the round ball end of a bobby pin. You can use toothpicks. You can use skewers. So if you want to get this effect but you just don't have in the house or in your arts and crafts arsenal the actual dotting tools, it's not a big deal. Q-tips, whatever you want to use, just give it a try. Try it on a piece of paper first, and if you like the size that a toothpick produces, try a toothpick. Nail heads are also good to use because you can get all different sizes of nail heads, and it actually, holding the nail gives you a little bit of the handle just like I'm holding a dotting tool. So go out into the garage or shed and check for those too. I sound like I'm pushing dotting on you. If I am, it's because I really love dotting. But you don't have to dot at all if you don't want to. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our glow in the dark, and I'm just adding it in between wherever those dots are. I want to keep the shape of the jellyfish so that when this does glow, you're going to see the shape of a jellyfish and not just brush strokes. So I'm not doing the whole entire body, and I'm not doing all of the ribbons down below. I'm just doing it enough to give the definition of each jellyfish. And then in those same areas that I'm doing the glow in the dark, after that has dried, I will be adding my favorite Sargent acrylic glitter glaze and going over it in the same area. I did 3 coats of that glow, by the way. 1 coat just wasn't enough. 3 was just the right amount. So now we're coming in with this Sargent's. I love this stuff. I've already said that a million times, but I'll probably say it a million more. And once again, I'm not using a lot. I just pour it into the lid. I just want accents of this glitter though, so I'm making sure my brush, same brush I used before, is well saturated with water and coming right back in and over the same areas where the glow in the dark was. Not even as much on the ribbons as the glow in the dark is on the ribbons, just a slight hint of the glitter. And then after I got that glitter dried and applied, all I did was a UV resin coat. Didn't do that on camera. You can seal it with whatever you want. Rust-Oleum 2X. I'm blocking the names of other sealers, but there are plenty of them out there. I happen to love UV resin, and so I popped on a coat of that, and that's what you will see in the finished product. Pictures and video clip at the end. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you paint some jellyfish either with me or on your own and make it your own. And if you want to use the same things I did, reference at the beginning of this tutorial. I showed all the materials that I used, or again, make it your own. But most of all, have fun and have a wonderful day or evening or whenever it is that you're watching this. See y'all next time.
My brain is just a jellyfish in the ocean of my head. 'Cause I drank too much tequila and I woke up seeing red. Now all I really want from life is to crawl back into bed on account